I was pouring cereal for my daughter when the world ended. It was a small, stupid moment, the kind of morning when everything feels ordinary. The kettle was screaming. My daughter Lily was complaining about the crust on her toast. And I was trying to pretend like I wasn't exhausted from another night of waiting for a call that never came. He had told me he'd be gone for 3 weeks. Routine training mission, he'd said, pulling on his boots like it was nothing. His smile wasn't forced. His eyes didn't dart away. He didn't stutter. He looked like a man telling the truth. But that morning, the truth came from somewhere else. The TV had been left on background noise to keep the house from feeling so empty without him. I usually tuned the world out when he deployed because the news loved reminding military families of the nightmares we pretended didn't exist. But that day, Lily pointed at the screen. "Mom, isn't that Dad?" I didn't turn at first. I thought she was being dramatic. Kids see their fathers everywhere when they miss them. Then I heard the anchor say it. Unidentified American operative involved in an overseas incident. My hand slipped. The cereal box fell. Cornflakes scattered everywhere like tiny golden explosions. And then I saw it dot his face, dot my husband's actual face. Not blurred, not guessed, not rumored, dot clear. Front and center, framed in a paused video. Clip like he was some kind of criminal. The headline beneath him sliced me open. American agent linked to covert escalation. Agent dot not. Soldier dot not instructor dot not advisor dot agent dot agent. Meant lies. Agent meant secrets. Agent. Meant everything he told me about this training mission was a script. Rehearsed for me. Dot. My knees buckled so fast I had to grab the counter to stay. Upright, I felt Lily's hand tug my shirt. Her voice turning small. "Mom, what's happening?" What was I supposed to tell her? That the man she adored might be someone we never actually knew? That the father who tucked her in at night was suddenly the focus of a national broadcast? That the world was learning the truth about him before his own family did? I couldn't breathe. The room spun. My heart felt like it was beating outside my body. Then the footage changed. Zoomed in on him running through a dusty alley, yelling to someone off screen. He looked terrified. Not the calm, controlled version of him I knew. The one who always told me, "I've got it handled." This man was desperate. This man was fighting for his life. This man had been lying to me. The reporter continued. Sources indicate the operative may have acted outside protocol. The Pentagon has not released a statement. Outside protocol. Do you know what that means to a military spouse? It means blame. It means scandal. It means your husband is being painted as the problem before the investigation even begins. I knew what came. Next, neighbors talking behind their curtains, mothers at school whispering about that family, people assuming I must have known, people judging me for standing beside a man they believed was dangerous. Lily looked at me again. "Mom, is Dad in trouble?" My voice cracked on the first syllable. I don't know. It was the first time in my life I admitted it. He always told me enough to keep me calm, but never enough to tell me the truth. My phone buzzed. Violently. 5 messages. 7. 12. Group chats blowing up. Friends sending me screenshots. A military spouse. I barely knew asking if I was okay. My husband's sister calling. Repeatedly. The humiliation hit me like a wave, not because he was on the news, but because the world suddenly knew something about my own husband that I didn't. I felt stupid. Exposed. Betrayed. And yet worried. Because in that paused frame on the TV, his mouth was open mid-shout, and his eyes weren't the eyes of a villain. They were the eyes of someone warning or begging or trying to stop something. Then the anchor said something that made my blood freeze. Authorities have not confirmed whether the operative is alive. Lily didn't understand. But I did. The news wasn't just reporting a scandal. It was preparing the public for a tragedy. My hands trembled as I grabbed the remote and turned the volume up. I needed every detail, every angle, every syllable. I needed to know what they thought he'd done. But before I could focus, there was a sound outside, a car door shutting, a second one. Heavy footsteps coming up the driveway. I ran to the window. Two men stood on my porch. Asterisk black coats. Government posture. No hesitation when they reached for the doorbell. The kind of men who don't visit unless something catastrophic has happened. My stomach dropped. My throat closed, and for the first time since the broadcast began, I felt the humiliation shift into something sharper, darker, and far more terrifying. They weren't here to give condolences. They were here because of whatever the news wasn't telling us. And with each step they took toward my door, one truth pressed harder and harder into my chest. My husband wasn't just in danger. He wasn't just missing. He wasn't just exposed. He had dragged just into something we were never meant to survive before the news turned him into a headline. He was just Daniel, man who laughed too loudly at his own jokes, the man who always forgot where he left his keys but never forgot my coffee order. The man who once drove 2 hours at 2 a.m. just to bring me a blanket because I told him I was cold during night shift. He wasn't a ghost. He wasn't a shadow. He wasn't an operative living behind layers of classified walls. He was my husband, or at least the version of him I met. I remember the first time he walked into my life. It was at a friend's barbecue, the kind of boring Saturday gathering I usually escaped from by pretending I had work. He wasn't the loud type. He wasn't the guy telling stories to impress everyone. He was standing near the grill, poking the food with a fork he definitely wasn't supposed to be using. He was handsome, yes, but not the kind that made you stare. He was the kind that made you feel safe when he looked at you. Want one? He asked, offering me a slightly burnt skewer. It was ridiculous and unforgettable. We talked for hours that day. Conversations that felt so easy, so natural, like we'd done it 100 times before. He told me he was in the military, but nothing fancy. Logistics, he said with a shrug. Mostly paperwork and yelling about paperwork. I never questioned it. Why would I? He didn't talk like someone hiding secrets. He talked like someone tired of them. When he asked me out, I said yes. When he showed up late to every date, I laughed it off. When he carried tension in his shoulders that no massage or day off ever fixed, I assumed it was just the job. I never imagined there was another world behind his eyes, a world with bullets and dossiers and missions he couldn't speak about, because when we were together, he was present. He wasn't distracted. He wasn't cold. He wasn't half here and half somewhere else. He was mine. And for years, that was enough. We married in a small courthouse ceremony because he told me he didn't want a big scene. At the time, it sounded sweet, simple, intimate. Now I know better. Back then, the red flags were just moments I brushed off. The phone calls he ignored. The deployments that didn't match the paperwork he showed me. Nights he stared at the ceiling instead of sleeping. Scars on his back he never explained. The way he would instantly scan a room before sitting down. But love makes you rationalize anything. Was good to me. Good to Lily. Good to everyone he loved. Sometimes too good, like he was making up for something. I used to tease him. You act like you're protecting us from invisible monsters. He always smiled. That same tired smile. If I'm doing my job right, he said once, brushing my hair back, you'll never see the monsters. At the time, I thought it meant he was stressed. I didn't know it meant he was Telling the truth. I didn't know the monsters were real. I didn't know he fought them. I didn't know they had names. And faces, and agendas. Asterisk, I didn't know they were watching us, but the biggest lie wasn't in what he hid. It was in what I chose not to see, because deep down, I always sensed something was off. He could disappear emotionally in the middle of a conversation, fade, out, go somewhere in his mind. I couldn't follow. He could sense danger before there was any. I remember once, we were grocery shopping and he grabbed my wrist, pulling me behind him when a loud crash echoed from the stockroom. It was just a stack of boxes falling, but the way he reacted, the stance, the scanning, the adrenaline wasn't normal. Asterisk, I remember whispering, "What was that?" He simply said, "Habit." I believed him, because love makes you trust even the things that scare you. But the cracks grew deeper when Lily was born. He held her like she was the most fragile thing in the world. He cried, really cried, for the first time since I'd met him. But then something changed. In him. In us. He became protective in a way that felt unnatural, not paranoid. Calculated. He installed cameras around the house. He changed our locks 3 times in 1 year. He insisted Lily never sleep near any windows. He made me text him every time I left home, even to get milk. When I joked, "Are we under surveillance or something?" He didn't laugh. He didn't say anything at all. That was the moment, if I'm being honest, when I first felt it, that I didn't fully know the man I married, that some part of him lived behind a wall I couldn't see through, but he always found a way to pull me back. The gentle forehead kisses, the stories he told Lily at that time. The way he held me at night as if the world only made sense when I was in his arms. Those were the things that built the illusion I loved, the illusion I fought for. And then the day he left, the day he said the words "training mission" with a straight face, I didn't question him, because I loved the version of him he allowed me to see. I didn't know the real him was already slipping away. I didn't know that by the time the news exposed him. My marriage had already become a story. I wasn't the main character, and I thought I married a soldier. I didn't know I married a man the world would one day call something else. Something dangerous, something classified, something I was never meant to understand, but I would soon learn the truth, not from him, not from a friend, not even from the government. The truth would come from the last place I expected. The 2 men standing at my front door. I used to think the biggest secrets in our marriage were the ones he kept from me. I was wrong. The biggest secrets were the ones he kept with him, packed inside a black duffel bag he treated like a lifeline. Back then, I didn't know what was inside. I didn't even know the bag existed until the night it rolled out from under our bed, half unzipped, after he left for one of his training missions. I remember the moment clearly. Lily had finally fallen asleep on my chest after a day of crying for her father. I laid her down carefully, wiped my eyes, and bent to pick up the blanket she had kicked off the bed. That's when I saw it. A corner of black fabric sticking out from the shadows beneath our mattress. Daniel was not sloppy. He never left things lying around. If something was out of place, it wasn't an accident. But that night, the universe wanted me to see. I pulled it out. It was heavier than I expected, like it carried metal or guilt. At first, I thought it was just his gym bag, but then I saw the tags. No name. No military unit. Nothing. Just a strip of duct tape with a single handwritten word: personal. My stomach tightened. I unzipped it slowly, the way someone opens a door in a house they're not sure is abandoned. Inside, I expected clothes, Maybe toiletries, maybe some leftover MRE packets or deployment gear. I found instead felt like stepping into a stranger's life. There were folders, thick ones, old ones, stamped with labels I didn't recognize. A 23 redacted field. Subject, Kuraman, confidential, eyes only. The kind of documents no soldier in logistics should ever have. The kind of documents no husband should hide from his wife. My hands trembled as I touched them. The paper felt thin, almost brittle, as if it had been carried through heat and dust and fear. Some had photographs, clipped to the front. Faces of people I'd never seen. Men, women, a few children. Every face had something in common. They all looked like they didn't know their photo had been taken. A few had dates on the back. A few had names. Most didn't. My heart hammered so hard I could hear it. Each file felt like holding someone's life or death in my hands. And then I found the one that changed everything. A thin blue folder, unlike the others. It wasn't stamped. It wasn't printed. It wasn't official. It was handwritten. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded 3 times, worn at the creases, stained like someone had touched it 1,000 times. My husband's handwriting covered the page. It read, "If anything happens to me, trust no one except the person holding this file." I remember sinking onto the bed. The room felt too small, the air too thin. I could hear Lily breathing softly in the crib behind me, unaware that her entire world had just shifted. Trust no one? No one except the person holding the file. Who was that supposed to be? Me? Someone else? Someone he hadn't told me about? I shook the thought away and kept reading. Under the first sentence, he had written, "Burn everything except the blue folder." Burn? Everything? Including the lives in those photos. Including the mission files. Including the truth. My hands felt dirty, like I had touched something forbidden, something dangerous, something that didn't belong to someone like me. For a moment, I thought about putting it all back and pretending I never saw it. Ignorance. Felt like safety. Like peace. But then I opened one more folder, the one that looked newer than the rest. Inside it was a document, stamped with a seal I recognized from movies. Not real life. See. My throat closed. My husband. The man who forgot anniversaries. The man who kissed Lily's forehead every night. The man who once cried because he thought he lost his wedding ring. Was not in logistics. He was not in training missions. He was not who he told me he was. And then I saw the last page, the one that would make everything unravel. A surveillance photo taken from a distance. Grainy. Shadowy. But unmistakable. It was our house. The date at the bottom was 2 years old, before we were married, before Lily, before I ever knew him, before he ever met. And the note attached said, asterisk, subject, primary contact, purpose, access through emotional integration. My hands shook so violently the page slipped from my fingers. Emotional integration. Access. Subject. Me. I was his mission. Not his wife, not his partner, not his family. His mission. Or so I thought in that moment, in that drop of heartbreak that filled my chest until it hurt to breathe. Years later, I would discover the truth behind those words, a truth far more complicated, far more painful, far more human. But that night, I believed the worst. I stuffed everything back in the bag, zippered it, shoved it under the bed, and stared at the ceiling until sunrise, when he returned 3 days later, smiling like everything was normal. Placing his hands on my waist like he always did, I looked at him and felt nothing familiar, because I knew his secrets now, not all of them, but enough to realize one terrifying thing. My husband didn't just live 2 lives, he lived one with me. And what about me, Dot? And sooner or later, those worlds were going to collide. I just didn't know the collision would happen the night. The two men came to the door, badges out, and guns drawn. The night it happened. The house was too quiet. Lily had fallen asleep early, curled against my chest after asking for the fifth time when her father was coming home. I didn't have the heart to lie again, so I just held her and whispered, "Soon." Even though I no longer believed it myself, I hadn't slept in 2 days, not since I'd found the duffel. Bag, not since I'd read the files that weren't meant for my eyes, not since the sentence burned itself into my brain. Access through emotional integration. I felt sick every time the words replayed in my mind. He married me, or used me, or something in between. The house creaked in the wind. The heater clicked on. I stared at the ceiling, convinced that if I closed my eyes, the world would change again, like every hour had been doing since the moment I touched those papers, and then bang, bang, I knocked so loud it shook the front door, 3 sharp hits. Not a neighbor, not a friend, not anyone who knew us, the sound sliced straight through my chest. I froze, my breath caught. Every instinct screamed, do not answer. But something deeper whispered, this is it. The moment my fears become real, I carefully laid Lily in her bed. Her small hands instinctively reached for me in her sleep, and that nearly broke me. I pushed her door shut just enough so if anything happened, she wouldn't see. The knocking came again. Asterisk. This time slower, more deliberate, the kind that wasn't a request. It was an announcement. My legs felt heavy as I stepped toward the living room. The house looked different in the dark. Walls too narrow, windows too reflective, shadows too familiar. As I approached the door, something cold crawled up my spine. I hadn't imagined it. I hadn't overreacted. I hadn't misunderstood the files. Someone knew. Someone was watching. Someone had come. I stood still and listened. A voice on the other side, deep, controlled, official. Ma'am, we need you to open the door. Not a question. Another voice followed. Immediate. Compliance required. The words made my heart stop. This wasn't a casual visit. This wasn't concern. This was command. My first thought wasn't about myself. It was about Lily. Whatever was happening, whoever was out there. I had to buy her time. Seconds, minutes, whatever I could get. I swallowed the fear clawing up my throat and asked through the door, identify yourselves. There was a pause. Asterisk, a small one, barely noticeable, but enough to make the world tilt. Then the first voice said, federal agents. No names. No specifics. No badges held up to the peephole. Just federal agents. I didn't believe them. Not with everything I'd seen. Not with everything in that bag. Not after discovering my husband had lived 2 lives while I barely survived one. I forced my voice to stay steady. Show me identification. Another pause, longer this time. We'll show you after you open the door. That was all I needed to hear, because that sentence, that wasn't how real agents operated. 2 years ago, Daniel had made me memorize the procedure in case something ever happened. At the time, I thought he was just being paranoid. Now, I knew he'd been preparing me for nights like this. Valid agents show identification before you unlock the door. Always. Didn't open it. Instead, I backed away. Every instinct screamed, run, hide, protect your child. But something inside me, something I didn't know I had, pulled me forward. Instead, courage, or stupidity. Or maybe simply the part of me that had finally accepted the truth. My life was not normal. My husband was not ordinary. And this night was not an accident. Without thinking, I reached under the couch cushion and grabbed the small object. Daniel had hidden there years ago. Just in case, he'd said. A burner phone .black .unmarked .deadly. Serious, I had never used it, but my fingers moved like I'd always known how, like some part of me had been waiting for this moment. I dialed the only number saved on it, an unlisted sequence with no name. The call clicked before it even rang. A voice answered, calm and clipped. State your emergency, not hello. Not who is this? Just readiness, pure and absolute. My breath shook. I think someone's outside my house. They claim to be federal agents. The line went quiet for a moment. Then the voice said, is your husband with you? My stomach dropped. No. He's deployed, or he said he was. My voice cracked. Please, I have a child. What do I do? The silence returned, but it felt heavier, like whoever was on the line was weighing what to tell me, how much I already knew, how much danger I was in. Then, ma'am, listen carefully. Do not open the door. Do not speak to them. And do not hang up. His tone shifted from calm to urgent. Your husband was not on a training mission. My knees nearly buckled. What are you saying? Before he could answer, before I could breathe, bang. The door shuddered. Something hit it hard. Ma'am, open the door now. Lily stirred in her room. My heart cracked. I whispered into the phone, what are they? Who are they? The voice replied, they are not with us. Double quotes us. Who was us? I pressed myself against the wall as the door rattled again. Harder. Then who? The voice cut me off. Your husband sent us a message 3 hours ago. His last transmission. He said if anyone came to your door tonight, you were already compromised. My mouth went dry. Compromised. Not wrong. Not mistaken. Compromised. The man on the phone continued. Help is on the way, but you need to leave. Now. Double quotes leave. In the middle of the night. With my daughter asleep, with men outside prepared to break in. Before I could process it, the pounding stopped. Silence. Not safety. Silence. The kind that meant they were no longer trying to enter through the front. They were finding another way. My voice shook as I whispered, what do I do? The man replied, everything your husband taught you, everything he tried to prepare you for. It starts now. And that's when I realized the life I thought I was living was already over, and the man I married, the man I feared, had lied to me, was the only reason I was still alive. For now. I didn't sleep the night after the knock. How could I? My husband's face was still burned into my eyelids, not the face I kissed goodbye. Not the face that joked about just another training mission. Not the face that promised he'd be home before our daughter's school play. No. The face I saw in the news had blood on its temple, and a name tag that wasn't his. By morning, my throat felt like it had been sanded from the inside. I sat at the dining table with a cold mug of untouched coffee when a black SUV rolled up to my curb again. Not the same men, not the same tone. This time, they didn't bother acting gentle. A man with still gray hair stepped out, clipped and purposeful. Like he counted his breaths in increments of threat. He held a folder under his arm-thick, swollen, rubber-banded, and stamped with bright red letters, classified eyes only. He didn't even introduce himself before saying, ma'am, we need to talk about your husband. My bones went hollow. He didn't wait for an invitation. He brushed past me, stepping inside like he owned the place or like he owned the truth. I closed the door and forced myself to face him. What now? I whispered. He set the folder on the table with a heavy thud. Inside. That thud was the beginning of the end. The footage. He opened the folder and pulled out a tablet. I'm going to show you something, he said quietly, and I need you to understand. You were never supposed to see this. That sentence Alone froze every muscle in my body. The tablet screen lit up. Video.time stamp.encrypted.military watermark blurred out.it. Showed a dusty alleyway, stone walls, market stalls. A blur of people running for cover. And then I saw him. My husband, except he wasn't in uniform. He wore tactical gear, no insignia. No identification, nothing that tied him to any official unit. He wasn't part of a training mission. He wasn't even supposed to be in that country. Man appeared on the edge of the frame, shaking, yelling something I couldn't understand. Not an argument, a shove, a gun raised, a shot, asterisk. I covered my mouth, gasping as the sound echoed through my kitchen. What is this? I managed to choke out. The agent paused the video, his eyes fixed on me. This is footage from an operation your husband participated in, he said. An operation that does not exist on paper. An operation that officially never happened. My heart pounded so loudly the words struggled to reach me. He told me he was going to Arizona. I whispered. He said it was a training rotation. Desert survival drills. He packed sunscreen. The agent didn't blink. He lied to protect you. The sentence stung. Not because it wasn't believable, but because it was too believable. My husband had always been a wall protective, opaque, impossible to read when he didn't want to be. But this wasn't a secret. This was a double life. The missing seconds. The agent pressed play again. The footage continued. My husband speaking into a radio, dragging the shot man out of frame, signaling for someone off camera. Then dash static. The video cut out. I frowned. That's it? No. The agent's jaw tightened. That's all they allowed us to have. Allowed? I repeated, feeling heat rise in my chest. Asterisk, Mrs. Hayes. Someone higher than us edited this footage. Someone doesn't want the last. 17 seconds to exist. 17 seconds. Not enough to change everything, but enough to explain it. Enough to bury it. Enough to kill for it. The agent leaned back in his chair. We believe your husband discovered something during that operation, something he wasn't meant to see. We believe the same people who hid this footage are the ones who leaked his image to the media under a false identity. My skin prickled. What are you saying? I whispered. He didn't lower his voice. That broadcast wasn't an accident. It was a warning. The lie behind the lie. He slid a document. Across the table. A passport. A name I'd never seen. A face I knew better than my own. My husband. A second. Identity. My fingertips trembled as I touched it. This isn't him. He didn't choose it. The agent interrupted. He was assigned it. Used it. Forced to operate under it. I stared at the passport photo. His eyes looked different, harder, colder, trained on some distant threat. How long? I whispered. The agent didn't have to check his notes. 7 years. 7. Years married to a man I didn't fully know. 7 years believing in missions that were half-dash stories. 7 years building a life based on a version of truth that had been intentionally edited just like the footage. 7 years living with someone who had been dying inside much longer than I realized. I felt the humiliation crack into something else. Anger. Why didn't anyone tell me? I demanded. Because you were the one line he refused to compromise, the agent said. Your safety and your daughter's were his final conditions for staying in the program. I blinked. What program? The agent hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. The 17-second problem the agent finally answered. The program that erased him. He stood, closing the folder. You weren't supposed to know any of this, he said. But since the broadcast, you're already a target. Asterisk, my stomach dropped. Target? For what? I haven't done anything. You haven't? His voice softened, but your husband did. And whatever he found in those missing 17 seconds, someone thinks you might know about it. I don't. I know. He picked up the folder again, but they don't. He walked toward the door, then paused. One last thing, he said without turning around. If anyone else comes to your house, anyone, do not talk to them. Not even me unless I provide the code phrase. What phrase? He looked over his shoulder. The desert doesn't forgive liars. And then he was gone, leaving me with the footage, the secrets, and a marriage built unclassified. Foundations, but even after everything, I had just learned. Even after every lie revealed, I still wasn't prepared for what came next because someone else had the missing 17 seconds and they were already on their way to me. Didn't turn on the lights that night. Something about seeing the shadows moving across my walls made me feel less alone, like if danger came, at least it wouldn't come quietly. My daughter was asleep at my sister's house, safe from whatever storm my husband had dragged into our lives. I paced the living room with the tablet still on the table. The pause frame of my husband's blurred face stared at me like in accusation. 17 missing seconds, a second. Identity, a broadcast that wasn't an accident. Every truth came with a bruise. I kept replaying the agent's final words in my mind. You're already a target. They think you know something. The desert doesn't forgive liars. I hugged myself and tried not to cry, but then my phone buzzed. Not a call, not a message. A file.airdrop.no sender ID. Just a file name : 17_sec.mov. My heart stopped so abruptly. I had to sit down. Someone had the missing footage. Someone had sent it to me. And they knew exactly where. I was the 17 seconds. My fingers hovered over the screen, shaking uncontrollably. Then I pressed play. The video wasn't like the sanitized one the agent showed me. This one was raw, shaky, unedited, recorded from a different angle entirely. The shot man was on the ground, groaning, clutching his side. My husband knelt beside him, not killing him, not dragging him away, but pressing a bandage to his wound, helping him, saving him. I covered my mouth again, choking on a sob. And then the real horror started. A second team entered the alley. Black gear. No I inside GNIS. Faces covered. His team. One of the masked men yelled something, cutting through the chaos like a blade. My husband stood, raising his hands as if he recognized them. He said something, voice low, threatening in a way I'd never heard. The shot man on the ground reached toward him, whispering something I couldn't make out. And then my husband ripped something from the man's vest. A small drive. Metallic. Glinting. Even in the dust, he shoved it into his own pocket. The masked men noticed. Guns snapped up. My husband shouted, "You're not burying this." Not again. Then the screen exploded into static. That was it. 17 seconds that changed everything. 17 seconds that proved he wasn't the monster they were painting him as. He was the threat to them. He knew something they had killed men to hide. And now they thought I had it too. The second buzz, before I could even process what I'd seen. My phone buzzed again. Another airdrop request. File name : he _left _this. For _you. My vision blurred. This wasn't random. This wasn't an enemy. Someone was helping me. Someone on the inside. With trembling hands. I accepted the file. It wasn't a video. It was an audio recording. I pressed play and heard my husband's voice, not the clipped, mission-focused tone he used when talking about work, not the soft, teasing voice he used when waking me up for morning coffee. This voice was tired, worn, down. Frantic. Like he was talking from the edge of his own grave. The message, Emma. If you're hearing this, something went wrong. I froze. My name on his tongue felt like a physical wound. He continued, breath shaking. This isn't a mission. It's a cleanup job. They're erasing everything. The operation, the evidence, the witnesses. I pressed the phone to my chest, trying not to break. I didn't go looking for trouble, he whispered. I found something I wasn't supposed to. They shot a man because he tried to warn me. A pause, a ragged inhale. I got the drive. I hit it, not with me. They'll search my body first. My stomach dropped. Body. He was talking like he expected to die. He continued, if they come to the house, don't believe anything. Not the uniform. Not the badges. Not the names. They'll use my identity before they destroy it. He swallowed hard, and whatever you do, don't let our daughter see the news. The footage isn't real. They're using my face because it's easier than explaining who they're actually. After I felt my breath leave my body in pieces, he was trying to protect us even as he was being hunted. Then his voice cracked in a way I'd never heard from him. I'm sorry I lied to you. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you who I really am. But everything I did, every mission, every secret was to keep you both safe. A rustle, a click, footsteps in the background. He whispered one last sentence, barely audible. The flower grows where the desert ends. And the recording ended. The hidden clue. I sat still for several seconds, unable to breathe. Then the weight of his final words crashed into me. A code phrase, like the one the agent gave me, but this was personal. He had hidden the drive. Somewhere that phrase meant something. Flower grows where the desert ends. I whispered it aloud, and then I froze because I knew exactly where it meant. R. Backyard. More specifically, the corner where nothing ever grew except one stubborn desert rose he planted during our first year of marriage. He said it reminded him of the only place that ever felt safe. The desert ends at the house and the flower grows where he buried something. The drive. My heart pounded so violently I nearly dropped the phone. But before I could move, before I could stand, a shadow passed across my window. Someone was outside. Watching. Waiting. The message wasn't the only thing he risked sending, and the people hunting him had finally found me. I didn't move, not at first. The shadow outside my window froze me the way a gunshot does silent. But final. The whole room felt thinner, like the air itself was preparing for impact. I stood completely still, clutching the phone like a lifeline. The message my husband left. The drive hidden under the desert rose. The masked men in the footage. The agents with half-truths. Everything collided at once. My husband wasn't the villain on the screen. He was the reason someone wanted the truth buried. And now I was the only person alive who knew what he died for. The shadow outside took a step. The window whispered under the pressure. And then a soft knocked out asterisk, not forceful, not aggressive. Just deliberate. I swallowed, backed away slowly, and reached for the kitchen drawer, the only weapon I had being a dull fruit knife my daughter used for cutting apples. Another knock. This one gentler. A voice came through the glass. Emma, you're not safe here. I froze again because the voice wasn't unfamiliar. It was the agent from the safe house. The one who showed me the edited footage, the one who warned me I was already a target, but something was different. Now. There was urgency, fear, and oddly a hint of guilt. Please, he whispered. Let me explain before they get here. I opened the door a few inches, keeping the chain locked. His face was tense, eyes scanning the dark street behind him. Hand resting on a holstered weapon not meant to intimidate, but to react Where's your daughter? He asked quickly. Safe, I whispered. He nodded. Good. You need to keep her wherever she is. Tonight changes everything. I let him in. The story no one wanted told. He stepped inside. Took one look at the screen, still paused on the 17-second file, and exhaled shakily. So you saw it, he said. It wasn't a question. You lied to me. I said. My voice surprised even me. It didn't shake. He didn't deny it. Because telling you the truth earlier would have gotten you killed, he replied. Your husband wasn't a suspect. He wasn't rogue. He wasn't even supposed to be in the field that day. I felt the room tilt. Then why was he there? He hesitated. And that hesitation spoke louder than his answer. He stumbled onto an unauthorized operation, off-book private contractors. Men working for someone with enough power to bury their existence. The masked men, the edited footage. The erased witnesses. My heartbeat thudded painfully in my chest. And the man who got shot? I whispered. A whistleblower, he said. He tried to expose them. They silenced him, and your husband picked up the drive before they could wipe it. I sat down slowly, feeling the weight of it all crush me. So they killed him. I whispered. Asterisk. The agent didn't speak. Silence was enough. The drive. What's on it? I asked. He shook his head. I don't know. But I know enough to say this. Whatever he died protecting, it's bigger than intelligence. Bigger than missions. Bigger than our agencies. The men in that alley, they don't answer to the country. My stomach twisted. You said whatever he died protecting. Are you telling me? Stop. He looked away. And that was my confirmation. My husband wasn't coming. Home. Not alive. Not ever. For a long moment. I couldn't breathe. I felt the same silence. He must have felt seconds before recording that message, the kind that hurts more than fear. When I finally spoke, my voice was barely audible. He left the drive for me. He hid it. The agent stiffened. You know where it is? I nodded. He whispered a curse under his breath. Emma, listen to me. Once we dig that up, you won't be a witness anymore. You'll be a target. I wiped my tears and stood straighter. I already am. The desert rose. The backyard felt colder than usual. The moon cast a faint glow on the patch of earth where the desert rose stood a stubborn, lonely flower he planted when we didn't have money for anything except hope. We knelt in the dirt. My hands trembled as I dug, fingers scraping soil until something metallic surfaced. A tiny waterproof capsule. Inside it, micro drive, exactly where he said the truth would be. The agent took it gently. Then he did something I didn't expect. He handed it back. This is yours, he said. He trusted you with it. Not me. I stared at the capsule, dirt under my nails, tears burning my eyes. What am I supposed to do now? I whispered. His expression softened. You survive. Then you decide who you want the truth to destroy. The final message before we left. I replayed the voice message one more time, but this time, I didn't break. I listened. Really listened. The flower grows where the desert ends. A clue. Yes, but also something more, a farewell. A promise. A man's final act of love. My husband didn't die because he lied. He died because he refused. 2, he died protecting something bigger than any uniform. He died protecting me, protecting our daughter, protecting the truth. And for the first time since the broadcast, I didn't feel ashamed of the man whose face filled the screen. I felt proud, painfully, fiercely proud. Closure as dawn crept over the horizon, washing the yard in pale gold. I whispered the only thing left to say. I'll finish what you started. Not because I wanted revenge, but because he deserved to be remembered for who he truly was, not the man framed on the news, but the man who died trying to save the truth from disappearing. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt him with me dealt not in fear, not in grief, but in strength. The truth he died protecting now lived in my hands, and I wasn't letting it go.